So I've done something drastic, something I didn't originally plan on when I woke up this morning. In fact, I hadn't even thought about until this afternoon. And I don't know exactly what idea had spurred this on, but I've made a purchase, a responsible adult purchase. And by that, I mean I spent $300. But I'm actually pretty happy about it because I think I got a pretty good value. What I bought today was this. This is a 3D printer. Now, I have no experience. I want to mention this. I want to make this very clear. I have no experience with 3D printers, whether it be FDM or resin printers. And I've heard mixed things on this version of it. Again, let me go show you. It is the Anycubic Photon Mono M5S. But for what it's worth, I have seen that it has kind of constantly received some upgrades, at least since it has been released, which is good. And from what I hear, at the very least, the customer support from this brand seems to be quite nice as well. Now, that's all anecdotal. I have no experience with any of this. Now, this is actually a printer that's first and foremost designed for speed, though I don't really plan to use it for that. It's nice to have that option. Rather, why I bought it was because really the price was pretty good, all things considered, specifically for what it's capable of. Now, it says 12K and all this stuff, and I'm not going to pretend to know or pretend to understand what half of that means. I understand higher resolutions and all of that, but suffice to say, I'm happy with it. So far, at the very least, I don't feel buyer's remorse. Now, it's not here yet. It did have free shipping, which is always nice, and the reason I was able to get it as cheap as I did was it was A, refurbished, but through the company, which is always good to see, and B, another discount on top of that, saving me $140. I'm rounding there, but close enough. And that's pretty crazy. This also includes resin, so I bought this for $6.33 or something along those lines. That's not bad. The idea being that I wanted to do something like this for a while. See, I do actually 3D model some of my own pieces. It's rare that I do it, but I do it on occasion. And as I plan through this year, I guess a New Year's resolution, if you will, is to try and continue to learn Blender. Blender is an incredibly capable program, and it's free and open source, which I really like. Also, the community around it is quite nice as well. And Lord knows, an approachable community is a valuable resource. I am also using OBS, and the community sometimes on that can be a little bit more frustrating, so I'm happy to see it with something like Blender. And as I continue to get more familiar with the program and continue to utilize, honestly, what is one of my better strengths when it comes to working with 3D modeling programs, I plan to make more parts, more custom parts. Outside of this, though, I also use Studio and, of course, its sister program, I guess, Part Designer, which is notoriously buggy, but when it works, you can do some pretty cool things with it. It is definitely something you kind of have to brute force your way through, but again, thankfully, because of its fairly friendly and easy interface, it's easy enough to learn and to learn how to sort of mitigate the bugs that are, well, let's say, built into that program. That's not high praise for the program. I think it is honestly not great, but it does do a couple of things really well. And thankfully, there are a handful of creators out there who have created models for Bionicle pieces, for Lego pieces in general, that are free. And I can definitely print some of those pieces for my own collection as well, and maybe even potentially some for sale, of course, depending on, rules and restrictions and things like that, because I want to make sure that I honor their creations as well. But I can also utilize those parts for measurements in certain scenarios. If something is off or gets distorted by one program, I can use some of those pieces with known variables, let's say, to sort of calibrate my own. And that's always nice. Now, here's the thing. I didn't necessarily buy this to 3D print parts and sell them direct. That's not to say I won't do that, because it seems like this is a pretty capable machine, and I'm honestly excited to test it out when it gets here. But rather, I bought this more as a complement to resin casting, which is a different beast entirely, but something that can be done really well with a resin 3D printer, of course, is, well, quick creations of those 3D models in a physical space, a tangible space. It allows me to prototype and test parts that I have designed so that I can use those parts to then later create silicone molds of a piece. Probably better than this, but that'll work for this visual aid. And so that means that I could make something like my custom set of Borax shields and actually have physical products that I can resin cast in whatever color I want. And in resin casting it, potentially even eliminate things like layer lines, which resin casting or resin printers are already quite good at mitigating in and of themselves. So again, this seems like a really incredible piece of equipment, to be honest, and $300 is by no means expensive for something like this, so long as it works. And again, I have read a lot of reviews. I've been doing a decent amount of research pretty much throughout my entire day. Saying that I didn't think about it yesterday is not technically true. I had some thoughts, though I hadn't done any real research. But there are several other machines out there that can cost several hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And so to get my foot in the door, if you will, to test the waters, for just $300 is not awful. And, you know, worst case scenario, it comes with a warranty, it comes with a return policy, etc. And that's always nice. I went with basic resin just to kind of get a feel for what it's going to be like through the same brand as well. And it was $20, which is not awful by any means. I pay for regular resin and it's $20 for casting. So to see about the same thing for a resin printer, which yes, they are different products at the end of the day, is still kind of nice. And they also often offer deals as well. The alliteration there is not escaping me. But I'm really excited about this. It's a huge step, and it's farther than I think I imagined where I would be. Outside of just YouTube stuff, which of course it can be really useful for videos as well, especially given the speed of this machine. It's probably most notable feature, especially for videos, because this is a machine that can print reasonably large objects for a resin printer, specifically in like an hour or two. And that's pretty incredible, where some things may take 4 to 5 hours or more for the same size of products, volume of product. And that's pretty cool. Bionicle pieces, generally, at least the ones that I want to print, are reasonably small, meaning fitting them on a build plate shouldn't be terribly difficult. Being able to get like 8 Borax shields out of a build plate, or even potentially 8 masks, is incredible. And when it comes to resin casting, as I continue to hone that skill and sort of, let's say, polish out my workflow, I can turn that into like a literal scalable business, if that makes sense. That's not to say that that's what my plan is, because I do it for myself for the most part. I do it because I enjoy it. But to have that option available is not something to be slept on. Here's the thing. With resin casting, because that is more, let's say, scalable once you have the equipment, these two things can pair together beautifully. Now, there are some caveats, of course. Resin printing, for example, can inhibit the cure of certain types of silicone, mold making materials. And so there are certain ways that you can treat it. You can also, I've at least heard and will plan to test, like bake items to do other things as well, wash them and cure them in like water, etc. I've seen a lot of people do some really interesting things. And at least for me, so far, it has worked. I have test casted against 3D printed resin. Not my own pieces. Again, I've not used them, but 3D resin printed pieces that I have purchased. And I've had pretty good results. So I am going to cross my fingers and just hope and pray that, hey, maybe this will work. The other thing to note is that this is a very fast moving technology, because resin 3D printing, I imagine at the very least, is newer, or at least newer to the commercial market than filament printers. They're both very good at specific things too. I don't want to knock either, because again, I don't have the experience with them. And there are certain things you can do with one. There are certain areas where FDM excels, where filament excels, and there are certain areas where resin excels as well. And I am not the channel to promote either of those things. And of course, when I get this item, I'll give it an honest review as best I can, of course. Having no experience, of course, I don't know exactly what to expect. Hey, that's part of the fun, right? But no, looking back at it, it's a big step. And it's a step I'm really proud of too, because as you know, even when this channel started to really pick up back in November, like I was struggling here. We weren't really bringing in any sort of money to know that I can make a purchase like this and still have a lot more in savings now. And that's not because of YouTube, it's because of other things. I don't hardly make anything from here. So that's out of my mind. Though I do want to say I am thankful for the handful of patrons that I have over on Patreon. And of course, if you want to support that, you can check out links in the description, but by no means do you feel like you need to. I just appreciate your views and your engagement. And that's the best thanks I can give. With that being said, though, the last thing I wanted to mention too is just how this opens up prototyping, to me at least. As someone who is just kind of a mechanical brain in general, but also someone who constantly thinks about how things can be designed better, or at least maybe even wants to change things that I have access to in front of me just to make them a little bit more convenient. Print out a wall hook to hang something on, or whatever the case. That's nice. And that's not lost on me. So that's going to be it for this one. But like I said, if you're curious about this printer, and I will leave a link from where I bought it to. I don't know if they have any more refurbished ones. I did not check after I purchased it. But if I can find more that are refurbished, hey, I'll show you that one too. And if that's something you feel like checking out, I don't make any money from it, but you can check out the link. That might work for you. I did have issues with, I should mention, I bought it through the eBay store from Anycubic specifically. And they had the best deal, so that's why I bought it through them. And they had the, like I mentioned, 20% off. Just note, at least for me, it bugged out a bit earlier today and was not letting me apply this coupon code because it was automatically applying a different one and then not letting me remove that one. So that was weird. But I did eventually fix it by going through the refurbished section of their store, if that makes sense, rather than going directly through their store. But yeah, it is. It's all done by them. That's all I want to say. All right. So that's pretty much it for this one. As I mentioned, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe because it is the best way you can help this channel out. Sharing this type of stuff and getting it sent through the algorithm is, I don't understand it all, but it helps. With all of that being said, though, you can join in the conversation in the comments, or you can check out the links in the description for Discord, Instagram, and again, Patreon if you want to support the channel and get some perks and help, I guess, a $300 poorer guy, but I don't really need it. So I do appreciate your views, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.